There's a group of talented ultra racers from India competing in some of the world's most challenging ultra events, from the Ultra Spice 1000 kilometer in India to the race across America. In today's episode, we'll be hearing from Mayank Tripathi, a young and very competitive racer who recently won the Indian 24-hour virtual time trial championship hosted by the Irregulars through Zwift. In addition to learning about why Mayank is so driven to race indoors, we'll also be discussing all the usual ultra-minded subjects from training to nutrition to racing. I'm your host, Justin Tu. Let's roll. Hey, Ultra family, Justin Tu here, your host of the Ultra Cycling Show. Thanks for tuning in for today's episode. We have a very unique cyclist who loves indoor training and riding, believe it or not. And we're here to talk about especially his recent 24-hour indoor virtual victory. So really excited to have Mayank Tripathi on the show today. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks a lot.
So there's a lot to cover because you're a unique rider, and this is going to be a really fun session because uniquely you enjoy indoor riding on your trainer. Is that correct?
Correct. That's correct. And yeah, I was introduced to indoor cycling around 2 years back. And yeah, there's something that I like about indoors. And I just got hooked onto it.
All right, we'll dive into that after a short sprint round of questions. Now, you currently reside in Toronto, Canada, but you're originally from Pune, India. And so let's ask a few questions just to get to know you in a nutshell. You could answer in a few sentences, just a fun way to start and allow us all to kind of get calibrated into who you are as a cyclist. First question, Mayank, how long have you been riding bicycles?
So it has been 8 years since I've been cycling.
Okay.
Competitively, you can say. Yeah.
Great. Now, how long have you been an ultra cyclist?
A little more than 4 years.
Okay, so half the time. How many bicycles do you own?
I have around 4 bicycles.
Wow. All right.
As of now, I just have one.
Okay. Which of those bicycles do you ride the most?
Yeah, so I have the road bike. That's what I ride most of the times.
Okay, right. And is there a specific bicycle computer that you use? A Garmin, Wahoo?
I use a Garmin.
Garmin. And what's your favorite ride snack?
My favorite ride snack. I love dates. I like to carry dates with me.
Okay.
Apart from that, I like chocolates. Yeah, I have a sweet tooth.
Okay, cool. And the dates, a particular form, like in a bar, or literally just raw dates or pure dates?
Just raw dates, just raw seedless dates.
Oh, okay. Very cool. Now, how about your favorite ride hydration?
I have tested a lot of different brands. And recently I've started using Scratch Labs. It has been 6 months now. And yeah, I really like the taste because it's not very overpowering. It's a very subtle taste. And it has been giving me a good performance. So yeah.
Yeah, you're actually the second guest on the show that has mentioned Scratch Labs. Other than myself, I've tried Scratch myself as well and do quite enjoy that subtle flavor also.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, Mayank, when was your last ride and how long was it?
Well, the last ride was obviously the 24-hour virtual time trial. And that was 24 hours long. I was on the saddle for 23 hours, 46 minutes. So I took around 13 to 14 minutes of off saddle time.
That's excellent. And how long ago was this time trial event?
This was on the 15th of August.
Okay, so just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, 10 to 11 days back.
Awesome. Are you affiliated with any club or team or any kind of group around there in Toronto?
Not now, since I've recently come here. It hasn't been even a year. But back in Pune, I was part of a team. That's WSSM. Full form is Western State Sports Management.
Cool.
So yeah, I was part of a team over there, but not over here, not yet.
Awesome. And now, as a rider, Mayank, do you prefer the climbs, the descents, the rollers, or the flats?
So yeah, I used to like flats, but it's a funny story. I didn't do any climbs for the first 2 to 3 years of my cycling because I was in a city which was totally flat. And when first time I did climbs, like a proper climb, a proper hill, I just fell in love with the whole climbing thing. And I love climbing. Although I'm a tall rider, I weigh like 72 to 75 kgs. But still, I love climbing. I love attacking the climbs. So yeah, that's my favorite.
Very cool. And so about 75 kg, so that's around 165 or so pounds.
Pounds, yeah.
Right, but you're also tall. Do you know how tall you are in feet and inches?
I'm 6 feet 1 inch.
Oh, okay. So a pretty good weight there for your height.
Yeah. So nowadays I'm around 72. Has gone down a little after the event.
Okay.
So yeah.
So it sounds like you probably have a pretty good power to weight ratio, I'd imagine. How about your max speed down a hill? Do you know what that is?
My max speed downhill, I remember touching 80 kilometers an hour. So yeah, that's the max that I've touched. I don't like to risk a lot on the downhills. So I like to be in control all the time. So I haven't touched 100 or crazy speeds.
Yeah, but yet that's still close to 50 miles per hour, I believe. So that is a fast speed. You have to be pretty comfortable with your bike handling.
Yeah, and you need to have a good hill, a safe hill for that.
Right. Yeah. Now, when do you enjoy riding the most? I know you were in Pune, India before. So what kind of season, fall, winter, spring, or summer there? And then how about now in Toronto? You've been there for maybe all of the seasons.
Yeah. So back in India, Pune happens to be a city which is like all year round. The weather is quite good. It's all pleasant. It's just that the monsoon weather doesn't let you ride a lot outdoors. So like 3 to 4 months, I would say, is the time when you're not able to ride outdoors. Otherwise, all year round, you're good to ride outdoors.
How about in Toronto?
Over here, you can say 6 months, it's good to ride outdoors. It's not as bad as people think. From the month of May till maybe October, it's good to ride outdoors. And even a few warm days during the winters as well.
Right. Is there a certain time of day that you enjoy riding the most?
So I like to take rest on Mondays just because I do a long ride on Sunday. So I take a break on Mondays and rest all days ahead. So I train for 6 days a week.
And do you enjoy riding more in the morning times and afternoons and the evenings?
Yeah, I'm an early riser. So morning is my time. I like to wake up early and train in the mornings.
Right. Now, as an ultra cyclist, do you think ultra cycling requires more physical or mental training?
Both, I would say, but it's like even if you don't have that physical strength, you can race with your mental strength. And so I would say mental strength is a must. Even if you don't have that physical strength, it's okay, but mental strength is a must. Without that, your physical strength is of no use.
And in the way of events, I would imagine you've done quite a lot over the last 8 years and the last 4 years in ultra cycling. What would you say has been your favorite event?
My favorite event was the one I did in 2019. It's called the Ultra Spice Race. That's a 1,000-kilometer RAM qualifier. And I had prepared really well for that event, and I was able to do it in RQ timings. So that was a memorable event. Our team, like my crew, they worked really hard they made sure that I'm always on the bike. And, even if I was throwing tantrums at times, and they were making sure that,
Yeah.
I'm in my senses all the time. They were pushing me really hard, and I'll always be thankful to them. So that was a memorable event. That was one of my favorites.
Yeah, we'll get to all of that, more specifics on that race, also race strategy, your support team. But first, I'd like to start from the beginning. Thanks for going over all the sprint round questions. I want to know, how did you get started with ultra cycling? Who introduced you? What event did you start with?
Yeah. So I actually used to be a runner. That's from my childhood. I won't go too much in detail into that. But I met with an injury, with a knee injury, because of which I had to quit running. And then I was introduced to cycling. I just had an old bicycle at home, and I was just wondering, okay, let's just go for a spin. Let's see how it goes. And it went well. I didn't feel any knee pain, because the involvement of knee is very minimal when you're cycling. It's a low impact sport. And I was really happy with my ride. It was hardly a 20-30 kilometer ride. The next day again, I went for another 20-30 kilometer ride, and there was no pain. So yeah, I got hooked onto the sport. I started researching more and more about the sport. And I got a new bike, a better road bike, which would actually support whatever power I'm putting onto it.
Right.
And yeah, that's when I also came to know about brevets. So BRMs are long distance events, 200, 300, 400, 600 kilometers rides. And I've always, even in running, I used to be an endurance runner. I used to do long runs. And so similar mindset I had for cycling as well. I thought that, okay, long distance cycling could also be a thing. I started participating in those brevets. The first brevet that I did was a 400 kilometer brevet. And at that time, the maximum distance that I had done in one go was just 70 kilometers.
Oh my goodness.
So I hadn't even done 100 kilometers when I did my first 400. And the guys with whom I was riding, they were like, they didn't know me. I was a newbie. And they were like, will you be able to ride with us? Because I was matching up with their speed. And I was like, yeah, I'll try to stick with you guys, whatever. And towards the end, I was actually pushing them to continue.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
So that was a very good event for me. That was the first long ride for me. 400 kilometers was like really long at that time for me. And then I started doing more and more brevets, more and more 200, 300, 600s. And then I was introduced to ultra racing. And during all those brevets, I also used to do short races just because it was exciting and it was short. I was able to put that amount of power, and I was getting good results. So I also used to do short races. And then when I was introduced to ultra racing, that actually happened because there was an event that was happening. It's called the Deccan Cliffhanger. And that's when I came to know that, okay, there are long distance cycling races as well, because brevets are not races.
Yeah, right.
And that is something that excited me. I started preparing for them. I didn't know how to prepare. I just used to do long rides, and that's all I used to do.
Right.
And that's the reason the first ultra race that I did, I failed miserably in that. My pacing wasn't proper. My nutrition wasn't proper. And I had to quit after around 250 kilometers. Then I have a habit of learning more and more through the internet. So I try to learn more and more what are other people doing in ultra racing, how are they training for it, what's the nutrition they are taking, what's the right strategy to approach such kind of a race. And I kept learning more and more. So yeah, that's basically the answer. That's how I came to know about ultra racing, and that's what attracted me towards it.
A very cool story. And it sounds like so you just started, you kind of hopped on your bike, you started enjoying it, you did longer and longer distances, and then you got
Yeah.
attracted to more the competitive racing side and for these long events. So it sounds like you definitely have a competitive spirit about you. You were a runner previously, so I'd imagine that competitiveness was simply carrying over. So that's very
Yeah.
cool. Mayank, how old are you?
Currently, I'm 31 years old.
Wow. So you're definitely on the younger end of the ultra family because, I
Yeah.
mean, just commonly when you think of ultra cycling, you're thinking about, I mean, at a minimum 40s, 50s, 60s, at
Yeah.
least in terms of the main demographic. So it's really exciting to see another young rider. I'm actually 30 years old, so actually you're a
Okay.
little older than me. And so it's exciting to see another young rider and to be able to chat with another young rider because I think perhaps with our mindset it's a little bit different and we're probably a little more competitive minded than the average ultra rider who's just maybe riding to complete double
Yeah.
century, a brevet, or some other kind of ultra event. Of course there are many fast riders of all ages, so it's cool to be able to get the perspective from you, and interesting how you started. My story is similar. I kind of rolled into it myself as well and just kept on adding the mileage and just my natural, I don't know if it's the
Mhm.
youth and craziness and competitiveness, kept on building. And I actually started it as a runner myself. And so I'm curious to know
Okay.
from you, after riding your bicycle for 8 years now and really racing for the last four in the ultra world, what do you
Yeah.
think of running now? Because for me personally, I've learned to fall in love and prefer bicycling simply because you can go a lot further. You could coast your bicycle. You can go down hills really fast, and it's kind of just a little bit more adventurous. What are your own thoughts on that?
So yeah, cycling is definitely more exciting because you cover more distance and you get to see more of the world. But
Mm.
with running, it's not the case. And even 1 hour of running is a good amount of running. But 1 hour of cycling is hardly anything.
Yeah.
So going back to running, I don't think I'll be able to make it because
Mm.
of the condition of my knee. I've tried running. I've tried doing duathlons,
Mm.
but like 10 kilometers is my limit. I'm not able to run beyond that, and my timing is also not that great when it comes to running. So
Mm.
I don't want to run just like that. I want to, if I want to run, if I'll run, I'll run competitively. Otherwise, I won't.
Right.
That's the way I think.
Yeah, we share a common mindset. Now, I want to get back to some of the events that you've done, and especially the recent 24-hour virtual time trial championship that you actually won. So it sounds like, I mean, between enjoying riding on the indoor trainer a lot, you also enjoy the individual aspect of ultra racing. I don't think you mentioned anything about doing any ultra relay teams, right?
No, I
Okay.
haven't done any team events yet.
So you've done the Ultra Spice race, which is 1,000 kilometers. So that's just about, say, 620 miles. So that's a very long distance. You did that in 2019, and that was in India. You've also
Yeah,
done a series of five road races and two individual time trials, right?
yeah.
And were those all indoor or outdoor?
Those were outdoors.
Those were
Those
the
were
outdoor
outdoors.
ones. Okay. But then
Yeah.
this year, just about 2 weeks ago, you did compete in the 24-hour virtual time trial championship. You won and you completed 771.8 kilometers. Tell me about
Correct.
that experience.
Okay, so the event was announced like just a couple of months back, uh, and at that time I was actually targeting some other event.
Mm,
So there's an event happening in Montreal, which is a 800-kilometer again RAM qualifier. I was training actually for that. That is also yet to happen in the month of September, although I'm not planning to do it now
mm,
because there's only one or two events that you can do in a year when it comes to ultra races.
mm,
So when I came to know about this event, it was checking all the boxes. It was indoors and it was an ultra race, and obviously it was a solo event.
mm,
So I decided that okay, I should do this, and I modified my training plan. So I train on my own. I have I don't have a coach. I make my own training plans and train accordingly. So the moment I came to know the event, I just tweaked my training plan so that I get my peak performance on the day of the event. And yeah, so I started to make sure that my race setup should be proper. And since it's going to be an indoor event, and this is something that I was doing for the first time, so I didn't have any experience of it.
Right, and here we have a photograph that you sent. This was your setup. It looks like you have things dialed in, and you definitely have a lot of nutrition to last you for 24 hours. What do we have here? So we have some of the Scratch Labs. I see a bunch of different products. Why don't you kind of just walk through some of those?
Sure. There's also a GU Roctane energy drink that you can see. There's a BCAA from Extend. Then there is Scratch Labs recovery drink.
Oh, okay, there we go. Yeah, here's the Scratch Lab. I recognize that.
That's the hydration. Right. Then there's a can of water. So this is just in case. So my support crew was actually my wife, and she was the only one. So even she had to sleep at times. So in case she was sleeping and I needed something, so I had kept everything near me, so that I can make my own nutrition and just consume it.
And I see you have just one small fan here. That's good enough for you to stay cool. Do you have air conditioning in the unit, or is the weather just generally not too bad?
There's actually another fan behind the stool that you cannot see.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, and there's an air conditioning as well. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, very good. And I see it looks like what kind of bicycle are you riding here?
This is a Focus.
Focus. Okay, Focus.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, so it does look like you have your aero bars on there as well. You have a towel there to catch the sweat.
Yeah.
So indoor riding is a whole another, almost a category of racing, especially if you're riding hard like you were. There was also the Race Across the West, which was offered as a virtual option this year, and quite a few competitors in that. But for those who don't ride a ton indoors, or especially long distances, even for an ultra rider, maybe, the typical ultra rider is only riding, 1, 2, 3 hours at most, let alone 24 hours. There's different aspects to it in terms of, the terrain isn't really varying. You're constantly spinning. You're not coasting down a hill or anything like that. So it does kind of wear on you. How was the experience for you, and how did your body react to all of that? I mean, you're used to it, but I'm sure even with all your training and your liking of indoor riding, I'm sure you still experience a lot of that unique to indoor riding.
Yeah, it is unique, definitely. And to be prepared for that, I also did a shorter version of that 24 hours. I did a 6-hour time trial around a month before, just to make sure that everything is okay. So the setup was exactly the same as I had in the 24-hour time trial. It was actually a mock race that I planned to have. I had the same nutrition plan, I had the same ride plan, everything same. And that is something that I used to prepare for it. I also did a virtual Everesting, which also helped me. So that was around 10 hours long. So I knew that I can be on the trainer for 10 hours. And 24 hours, I'll just have to stretch.
Wow, incredible. So what are some of the physical things that you felt in terms of your legs, the fatigue, the tiredness? Again, it's different from riding outdoor where the terrain may be varying. You might be able to coast here and there. On the trainer, I mean, I guess you could stop pedaling also, but at the end of the day, you're constantly spinning probably a higher cadence than you would if you were outdoors. So what was it feeling like in terms of your legs and maybe even your upper body?
So this virtual event was actually on Zwift. So there's a route called Tempus Fugit on Zwift, which is a 17.3 kilometer route, and you had to do loops of it. And in between this route, there is a very short climb. So there is a terrain difference. There was a climb on which you can probably go off the saddle and attack, and then there was a short 200-meter downhill as well. So you do get a small amount of rest. You can coast during that downhill and stop pedaling, get some rest, and again start pedaling. So that was there in the race. That kind of helped me to take those short or micro short breaks.
Okay. Now, through the whole span of 24 hours, tell me about the kind of ebbs and flows of yourself mentally and physically. Was there a low point? Was there a challenging point in that 24 hours? Maybe you were getting a little sleepy towards the end, anything like that?
Mm-hmm. Uh, Fortunately, I never felt sleepy. So the race started 8:30 local time, 8:30 p.m. local time. So it started itself in the evening. And my first 12 hours were dark, in the dark hours. I didn't feel sleepy because it was the first 12 hours. And the next 12 hours was the daytime. And the daytime, you don't tend to feel sleepy. So throughout the 24 hours, I never felt sleepy. And I was also taking enough caffeine so that I don't doze off.
Okay. Yeah, I guess it does help to start in the evening for those reasons. You can get the kind of the witching hours over in the beginning. But at the same time, I mean, just practically speaking, you probably worked a full day, or you had a full day, or did you kind of change your sleep pattern? Did you have a nap or a sleep period before the race during the daytime?
So fortunately, I had an off that day. That was a Friday, and so our company gives us alternate Fridays off. So that I was lucky to get an off day that day. I did wake up super early that day. Like I wake up at 3 in the morning, and I did a just a short priming 1 hour ride, very easy ride. And I stayed up late. And then in the afternoon, I tried to sleep a little. I slept for around 3 to 4 hours in the afternoon. So I tried to change my sleep cycle, and it kind of worked because I never felt sleepy. So it was all good.
Yeah, cool. Now, how many people were participating? Do you know?
So it was actually a 6 hour, 12 hour, and 24 hours. So there were 3 categories. In the 24-hour category, there were 8 riders.
Yeah, I'd imagine it would attract a lot of people from around the world simply because it's a virtual option. So you don't have to fly out to a certain location to compete. So that must have been pretty fun. Now, were you able to track the other racers and see kind of where you were in comparison to them?
Yes, so that's the, you can say, advantage and also a disadvantage of doing a virtual race, because you know where exactly other riders are. It's a disadvantage because when you stop, other people will also come to know that you've stopped, and they might ride faster to get an advantage over you, or something like that. So in a way, it's advantage or a disadvantage as well.
Yeah, kind of like a cat and mouse. It definitely can push you. And I'm sure the competition is fun in that regard. Now, was there anybody that was ever chasing you the whole time? Or, I mean, were you always out front from the beginning? Tell me about how that all played out.
So I knew that there were 1 or 2 opponents who are going to be tough to beat. And I always had my eyes on them. I did take an initial lead, like right from the beginning. I had a lead, and the lead kept on increasing. But at one point, the lead was stagnant, and I was all good with it because till the time it's not like they're not making time on me, I was all good. So I was just trying to stick to my plan, just to stick to my pacing strategy for the first 10 to 12 hours, because I didn't want to burn out, go too fast, and then lose all my stamina in the later 12 hours. So I wanted to make sure that I stick to my plan for the first 12 hours. And after that, based on where the competition is, I either chase them or increase my lead and so on.
Yeah, that's pretty
Fortunately,
cool.
I was always in the lead, so I didn't have to do that.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about, I mean, just mentally, in knowing and being able to see where your competition is. I mean, how much were you thinking about that and concerning yourself with what other people are doing and just tracking if they're moving still or they're stopping?
Yeah.
I mean, was that really a focus, or were you just really heads down and doing your own race?
Oh no, so we were. I was very much tracking where the other riders are, and what's the gap like between us.
Mm.
And since I personally knew them, I was also interacting with them
Oh,
over the phone. Like, how are you
wow.
doing? All good. And
Yeah.
so we know each other. We're friends.
Huh.
So that was fun. It was all in good spirit. All
Yeah.
we were all doing the race in a healthy way.
Okay, very cool. Were there some people you mentioned that there were some friends? Were they friends from India?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yes,
Yeah, so I think anybody that hasn't been living under a rock for, quite a number of years, last 5, 10 years, has realized that there's just a huge ultra cycling craze almost in India. And so as
yeah.
an
It's really
insider,
picking up.
yeah, as an
Yeah.
insider, just having recently come from India and having raced in India, I mean, tell me what on earth is going there? What is spurring and fueling the ultra cycling, racing there and just the whole community? It just seems like there's India is producing so many ultra cycling, ultra cyclists and also racers who are signing up for huge events like the Race Across America, like 24-hour time trial events like you just did.
Yeah, yeah. So I would say the Race Across America has to do a lot in that,
Hmm.
because there's something about that race that uh, all the Indian riders uh, are thinking like everyone wants to do that.
Hmm.
We did have a RAM finisher last year, Kabir, and he
Right.
was also in this 24-hour time trial, and he came second. And he
Hmm.
was the one that I was mentioning, that I was on calls regularly, and we were just chatting. And I also happened to crew for him in RAM in 2019.
Wow.
So even I would like to do RAM someday.
Ah,
Not sure
okay.
when, but yeah,
Hmm.
there is definitely a craze, and the main reason is, I would say, RAM.
Hmm.
Somehow the race has attracted uh, all the riders of the country, and everyone wants to do that.
Yeah, it just seems like an interesting dynamic how that even started. I'm just curious how, what was the impetus for the first person to sign up? I mean, how did they find out about it? Why did they set their targets on that? Given that, it's halfway across the world, it costs a lot of money,
Hmm.
the logistics, the
Yeah,
planning, the training, just as a
yeah,
bicyclist. And it's amazing how so many people, even including yourself, has kind of gravitated towards it, and now that's one of your own ambitions. Because I know
yeah,
for myself, and probably most of us, when we think of Indian sports, we think of cricket, maybe even tennis and those kinds of other sports. So it would just be an incredible story and history in the making to see dozens and dozens of ultra cyclists coming out of India, and I'm sure competing at a very high level like yourself. So it's very unique, and it's exciting to be able to chat with our first Indian ultra cyclist on this show. And I think you're doing a great job to represent your country. You've definitely achieved a lot, and it sounds like there's still so much more that you have on your bucket list. You're still very young, 31 years old, and so I'm sure you have a lot of power. What is your highest ambition? It's to do RAM, I suppose, is one of them, right?
definitely. I would like to do RAM, and not just complete it, but do it in a good time.
Mm.
So I've never aimed to just finish an ultra race. I have
Yeah.
a time target in mind, and I'm always trying to achieve that.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. I'm sure you must have already thought about it. What would your target time be?
uh, I would love to do it in sub 10 days, uh, under 10 days, definitely. And after that, let's see, maybe less than that in further attempts.
Yeah, excellent. Now, when you were still living in India, and I'm sure you still have many friends there, especially ultra cyclists, do you know any other ones that are currently training for something that maybe perhaps this year in 2020 they were planning to do RAM?
Oh, yes, Kabir himself wanted to do RAM in 2020 once again.
Mm.
Then there was Bharat, who was also planning to do 2020,
Uh-huh.
and he did do VRAM, the virtual RAM. He did do
Ah, I
that,
see.
and he came third in VRAM. Apart from that, there's Vivek as well. So I know these three people
Hmm.
that they were planning for 2020, and I'm sure they'll be doing in 2021 now.
Right. So what is kind of supporting the ultra cycling community back home? Is it specific cities there in India like Pune where there's
Mhm.
a larger community, maybe there's different bicycle teams or clubs or sponsors? Are there community development programs? Is the government kind of driving any of that? Or where give me a bigger picture in terms of the whole country and the different
Sure.
cities.
Uh, I would say that the ultra cycling community is mostly concentrated in the Pune city,
Hmm.
mostly because the first ultra race actually started from Pune.
Hmm.
Uh, Technically, there were a few races that started in different cities, but they didn't get enough popularity.
Mhm.
But the one that started in Pune, that's the one which got a lot of popularity
Mhm.
somehow, and it's still going on. So there has been 6 to 7 editions of that race, and then the same organization has been conducting more races. So the Ultra Spice race also has been conducted by the same organization. It's called Inspire India.
Ah. So does this organization Inspire India? Do they also put on other cycling events, perhaps just the traditional kind of road racing ones? Are they a large organization?
So they only do ultra races.
Hmm. Very interesting.
Yeah, there's one that they do in the Great Himalayan. That's
Hmm.
the world's highest ultra race
Hmm.
that happens up north.
Any plans to do that one yourself?
I would love to, but the logistics, I'll have to think of the logistics for that.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned you did an Everesting challenge recently as well. So it sounds
Yeah.
like you have enough of the pieces of the puzzle there.
Yeah.
So just taking a look at a map here to give everybody a context of what we've been talking about. So you're originally from India, just moved to Toronto, Canada about a year ago. And so
Yeah.
Pune, it looks like it is on the west coast of India and it looks like it's near Mumbai as well.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And I think I saw this city, how do you pronounce that? Goa?
Yeah. That's where the Ultra Spice race started.
Ah, I see. Okay. Now, how far is that from Pune?
It's around 450 kilometers.
Hmm.
So yeah.
So I'd imagine that there's a lot of beauty along the coastlines and a lot of ultra riding or even
Yeah.
just your own training rides.
So Pune happens to be, as I said, all year round the weather is quite good,
Hmm.
and that's also one of the reasons that a lot of cyclists are coming up from that city.
Hmm.
And yeah, cycling. There are a lot of hill stations around Pune, so
Hmm.
you get to do a lot of climbing as well. There is flat terrain as well. There is rolling terrain as well. So you get a mix of everything. A lot of climbs, a lot of rolling terrain. So yeah, it's perfect for any cyclist to live in.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Now, from your perspective as an ultra cyclist from that city and just from India in general, I mean, when did ultra cycling kind of pop on your radar? And in terms of when it started kind of getting popular, and you started hearing about it from a lot of your other ultra or your other cycling, friends or teammates.
So the first time that I heard about it was in the year 2014,
Hmm.
and uh, so I didn't race in 2014. It's just that I came to know about it, and
Hmm.
that's when the Deccan Cliffhanger that I was talking about
Hmm.
actually started in Pune.
Hmm.
That was the first year of the race, and yeah, I came to know about that, and I kept preparing for ultra races. And the first race that I did was in 2016.
Hmm. That's awesome, Mayank. Really glad to be able to have this conversation and share it with all the Ultra family. Now, I see on your Instagram, I don't believe this was from your 24-hour, but it looks like
This
from
was
the
a
six
six
hour
hour.
TT, the 6 hour one.
Yeah,
And
right.
just to give everyone a context of what it's like to race on Zwift. So looking pretty good there. And I imagine you enjoy this kind of format of racing, right?
Yep.
Okay, let's see. You got some statistics here. Yeah. So earlier we were talking about your power to weight ratio. So it looks like about 3.17 watts per kilogram for 6 hours. So that's not slow at all. That is some intensity.
Yeah. For
Very
6 hours,
cool.
it's good.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so let's get back to that because you uniquely like the indoor riding. I mean, just going through your Instagram feed here, we could see a lot of indoor riding. We also see some outdoor ones.
Yeah. So back in India, I used to do a lot of outdoors
Mhm.
and indoors as well.
So, how did you get so interested in indoor riding? Because it's not like every cyclist you speak with is raving about, and indoor riding, and they just can't wait for their next 6 or 12 hour train or ride. What exactly happened? I mean, tell me the progression from when you started ultra cycling to the point where you just really started enjoying riding indoor.
So until the year 2017, I was mostly training outdoors.
Mm.
Not mostly, my 100% of my training used to happen outdoors. And I wasn't training properly, as in there was no structured plan that I was following.
Mhm.
I just used to go out, ride, and come back home. That's the only thing that I used to do. There was no structured plan that I was following. And because of that, I kind of wasn't improving in my racing. And that is the year that I also did LEL. LEL is the Edinburgh London
Right.
brevet. That is a 1400-kilometer brevet.
Mhm.
Uh, I had a crash at 980-kilometer mark,
Oh my
and
goodness.
that was a horrible crash because
Yeah.
my knee had the same knee which got injured previously.
Mm.
Again, had multiple fractures, and I ended up having another surgery.
Oh my goodness.
Uh, and then when I was recovering from my injury, a good friend of mine, Samir, he suggested me that you should start from indoors. You shouldn't go just straight away outdoors
Huh.
because you're still recovering. So try to ride indoors. And I was like, indoor training doesn't make sense. I mean, why should one ride indoors when you can go outdoors?
Yeah.
And it was like it's a better way to train. It's a smarter way to train. So you're also working professional. You'll waste a lot of time when you go outdoors.
Yeah.
And even if you do 1 hour indoors, it's good enough. It's equivalent to maybe 2 hours outdoors.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, let's just give it a try. So I uh, got an okay trainer, which had a power sensor in it, and he introduced me to Trainer Road app. So there's an app called Trainer Road on which you can. They have some training plans which you can follow,
Right.
and you can train in a structured way. And he said that all you need to do is just blindly follow those plans, do nothing else, and try to learn more and more about
Mm.
training with the power meter. And then I just got hooked onto it. I liked the way the app the workouts in the app, they challenged me. So during the workout there's also text that keeps on coming, and the text is used to be very motivating. And that's the thing that's the time when I started loving indoor workouts. I used to sweat a lot, and that used to be like a challenge that okay, even if I'm sweating, even if I'm feeling bad, feeling worse, feeling like quitting, I won't quit. And yeah, I made up my mind that indoor training isn't torture, isn't bad, it's actually good. And it has now reached a point that I now love indoor riding.
Mm.
It's no more a torture for me, so I
Mm.
love it.
Yeah, and it'll be nice to be able to chat with other ultra riders on the show specifically about their own thoughts and sentiments on indoor riding. I think it's probably across the board, but my thought is, even thinking about myself as an ultra racer, I've learned to also appreciate and enjoy the indoor riding, even at the longer distances. Now, you touched
Yeah.
on, your friend saying that, perhaps indoor riding could be more efficient and a better use of your time training. So I'd imagine he's talking about the structured workouts that you can do on an
Yeah.
indoor bicycle, where perhaps if, resistance remains the same, it's a little easier to focus on, achieving what you want to in a workout. So what does your
Yeah.
workouts look like? It sounds like you very much adopt a structured workout approach and you use Trainer Road. I just pulled it up for folks so they could see what it looks like, because other guests on the show have mentioned their enjoyment of using that program as well. So on a week-to-week basis, you train 6 days a week. What do you usually do each of those 6 days?
So the way I make my training plans is by focusing an event. So if you have an event, you at least need to give yourself like at least 4 to 5 months or 6 months to be able to prepare for that event, so that you get your peak performance at the time of the event.
Right.
So for example, if my next race is now in February, I'll start training for it now, and I'll modify my training plan so that I get my peak performance in the month of February. So I usually start with a base plan wherein I am working on my endurance, just working on the sweet spot zone, making sure that I can withstand the load which is going to come after maybe 1 or 2 months. So I do a lot of base training for 2 months. Suppose the event is after 6 months. So the first 2 months I'll do base training. Then I'll start building up on my power. And I will do a lot of threshold and VO2 max workouts. And doesn't mean that, in a typical week, on a Tuesday, I'll go hard. And on a Wednesday, the next day, I'll take a recovery day. So I won't take a break, but it will be a recovery ride. And then Thursday, again, I'll go hard. Right. So one day hard, one day easy, one day hard, one day easy. That's how the week goes. And Saturday, Sunday, you can go long or do some climbing.
Right. Sounds like a good standard periodization that you apply to your events, and you do structure it around specific events. Earlier, you mentioned only doing maybe 1 or 2 big rides every year, so you're really just focused on that. And you also talked about power and, the way that you structure workouts and working on, around the sweet spot. Before, perhaps at the beginning of your whole training plan, before you start your base training or some period around there, do you typically do a FTP test, a functional threshold test to set your baseline power?
Absolutely. So I in fact keep doing FTP tests after every 4 weeks. So the number keeps changing.
Give me an idea for the 24-hour time trial championship that you did virtually. When did you start training for that? Was that about 4 or 6 months ago?
Yes. So I started in the month of March.
Okay. So around March, you did an FTP test. What was your wattage looking like at that point?
At that time, I was at 245. And then I kept on increasing. And on the day of the event, I was at 302.
Wow. Excellent. Now,
so
after
that has to do that has to do because before March, there was a big gap of 4 to 5 months where I wasn't training because I didn't have a bike at that time. I was new in Toronto. So in the month of February, I bought a new bike, and then I started training in the month of March.
Okay, makes sense. So what would you say the last, 4 years since you started ultra cycling, what's been your average FTP through a season when you're trained?
So back in Pune, my FTP used to be in the range of 300 to 320. So yeah, you can say I'm still not there where I used to be.
Right. So definitely a strong rider. I mean, that's not a low wattage. That's on the high end. So that's enough to give you the horsepower you need to be competitive, even in a shorter event.
Yeah.
Have you done any shorter road races there in Toronto?
No, not yet. So the racing season is mostly in the summer, and the summers have been taken over by the pandemic. So there wasn't any racing this year.
Right. Going forward, assuming events open up again, is your plan to still participate in the shorter road races?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love doing individual time trials because in individual time trials, you need good pacing. You need a lot of mental strength, and all these, both these things are important in ultra racing as well. So it kind of supplements both the things. I like ultra racing, and in that also you have to pace yourself in a proper way. You have to be mentally strong. So yeah, I like doing individual time trials. And even in short races, short road races, it's like fun for me. So I like to experiment different strategies in a road race. I don't try to win them. I just try to apply different strategies just to have fun.
Yeah, awesome. So it's all kind of making sense. I mean, you like riding on Zwift, you like the indoor, you're a strong rider, you like the strategy aspect. So for you, it really sounds like kind of a fun strategy making exercise and also, a challenge physically and mentally.
Yeah. So even during an ultra race,
Mhm.
people often ask me like, "What do you think? What do you keep doing during an ultra race?"
Yeah.
And half of the time, I spend time doing calculations in my mind that and making small targets for myself. Like next 20 kilometers, I would want to do it in 35 minutes, 40 minutes, like that.
Wow.
And once I achieve that, you get a sense of achievement and you feel good. And then you again make another small target for yourself. So when you keep doing those calculations in your mind, you don't realize when the time passes.
Right. So whereas other riders like thinking about how beautiful the sunrise and sunset is and how nice the wind feels as they're going down a hill, you enjoy thinking about mathematics and calculations to optimize your ride.
I'm a numbers guy. I'm a
Yeah.
big numbers guy. Yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
I like to keep a check of what my power is and is it according to what my plan was, and just making sure everything is in control. So yeah, that's good enough for me to keep going on.
Yeah, very cool. Adds a whole night, a whole nother dynamic to ultra cycling. So glad you can find some enjoyment there on your time on the bike. I'm sure over a 24-hour period, like you recently did on your virtual time trial, your mind is constantly working. So that's nice.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Mayank, we're looking at some other photos here that you sent through. This one looks pretty good. Looks like you're in serious focus mode, probably some other calculation. What picture
Yeah,
are we
this
looking
is
at here? Yeah.
I'm going downhill in this. So I'm just trying to
Oh,
maneuver
huh.
one of the turns.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
See what? How about down here? What's this? Looks like you're wearing a medal
This
there.
is the finish point of the Ultra Spice 1,000 kilometers.
Oh, okay.
After I got the medal.
So the Ultra Spice, is that one of the most popular or one of the popular events there in India?
Yeah, it's, you can say, the second most popular, but
Hmm.
done by Inspire India only.
Okay.
Mostly because it's longer distance. So
Mhm.
1,000 kilometers. There's also a 1,750 kilometer version of the same race.
Okay. So just to give us all a context, how many riders across the different distances usually sign up each year for the Ultra Spice?
Uh, there are around, not many, because it starts in Goa. So there's a logistics issue for a lot of people to reach there and then race. And since it's not, so Deccan Cliffhanger gets a lot of, it's overbooked most of the times. It's like around 40 solo racers and a huge number of uh, team racers, relay racers, and the total number goes to around more than 200. So more than 200 riders are on the roads during a Deccan Cliffhanger event. But in Ultra Spice race, there's not many people. You can say around 10 to 15 people,
Hmm.
including all the categories.
Very interesting. And it's such a
It
long
has to do
distance,
mostly with the logistics.
right? So I imagine you have a crew just like you would in an event like Race Across the West, Race Across America, Race Across Oregon, those kind of things we have here in the United States. Tell me about the support team that you had for that 1,000-kilometer race.
So we had 6 people, and most of them were cyclists themselves. So they exactly knew, what I would want at what point of time, and
Mm.
I explained them my nutrition plan, what all things that I like to eat, and what was my race plan, what all checkpoints I wanted to hit, and in how much time. And yeah, so they were so I didn't have to instruct them that what to do. They themselves knew what they needed to do in order to function in a proper way. Because in my previous ultra races, I had a different crew, and I had to tell them each and everything that, now give me this, give me this, give me that, don't give me this.
Mm.
But with these people, since they were all cyclists, I had a good time with them. I didn't have to worry at all what they were doing, and I was just blindly following whatever they were asking me to do. If they were giving me something, I used to eat it without saying anything.
Okay.
And yeah,
Yeah,
so
pretty cool. Now, talking about nutrition
mhm.
and riding so much, you said you're, it's around 150 pounds or so. You said 72 to 75 kilograms. Have you
Yeah.
found it difficult as an ultra rider through the years, difficult to eat enough to maintain the weight that you want, or to even gain any weight if you wanted to, muscle mass, for example? Tell me about that. I mean, and day to day, you're doing a lot of training 6 days a week. What are you eating? Is it easy for you to consume all those calories and nutrients that you need?
So I try to eat natural food as maximum as possible. I am not a drinker. I'm not a smoker. I
Mm,
don't fancy any junk food.
mm,
Uh, and yeah, whatever food I eat tends to suit me well. I've never had any weight issues
mm,
throughout my life. Uh, so, like as I said, I keep hovering between 72 to 75,
mm,
and yeah, I've never had issues with eating or gaining more weight or losing more weight.
mm. Awesome. Now, aside from nutrition, aside from training, what motivates you mentally? Is it personal ambitions? Is it specific causes? Just the competitive aspect of it?
I guess it just has to do with the competitive aspect. I like being competitive.
Mm,
Uh, in fact, during the 24-hour race, the target that I had set for myself was actually 800 kilometers,
mm,
but I I didn't reach till there, mostly because I already had a lead over my competitors,
mm,
and it was a good 20-25 minute lead.
mm,
So I was like, okay, I don't need to push more. But in case there was a good competitor who was maybe ahead of me or maybe challenging me, I would have pushed more. So I would say competitiveness is what pushes me. And the last 3 to 4 hours, I was mentally fatigued, and that was the time that I didn't know what to do because I already had a good lead. I knew that I'm going to win. Now what should I do? I didn't have
mm,
anything to do. I didn't have anything to work on. My
yeah.
mind was like, I don't have anything to do. What should I do? And
Mm,
so I like the competitive aspect. That's what keeps me going. That's what drives me.
mm.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
that's
really
that's the
cool.
reason.
Again, a lot of people in the ultra cycling community, they don't necessarily race for that kind of level of competition. So it is unique
Mhm.
to be able to chat with you about that aspect, which is very interesting, and to hear about people at very long distances, at very long durations, having that kind of sharp mindset to compete and to
Yeah.
achieve, a lot of fast times and putting out a lot of power. You did just about 771 kilometers, which, in doing a quick calculation, it seems like it's just about 480 miles, and that's within 24
Mhm.
hours. So that's pretty fast. The 500-mile mark is just around there. You got 20 more miles to go. Is that
Yeah.
something on your radar? Do you have any plans to come out to the 24-hour World Time Trial Championships in Borrego Springs, California?
Yeah, that's definitely on my radar, and I would love to do it next year. And
Mm,
I am like I've started talks with a few people who would want to crew for me or maybe race along with me.
hmm.
Uh, I'm really looking forward to that event. Yeah.
Okay. We'll
because
have
I have now done indoors, but I would like to prove myself outdoors as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
that sounds great, Mayank. We'll have to have you back on the show when you come out here to California. I'm sure you've heard and seen a lot of the different events out here, not just the starting line of the Race
yeah,
Across America, but the 24-hour, a lot of double centuries out here and many other events. So we'll be glad to welcome you here and follow your journey in California for a variety of other
absolutely.
races. But looking at some of these other photos that you sent, this one seems pretty cool. You're tucked into your TT position. What event are
Yeah,
we looking at here?
this was one of the individual time trial races that I did.
Hmm. And was this in India?
This was in India. Yeah, this was
Okay.
in Bangalore.
Ah, okay. Yeah, very nice. I like your shoes there. It looks like there's two different colors. They come like that, or are they two different shoes? I'd imagine they're the
Yeah,
same, right?
yeah, yeah. They come like that.
That's awesome.
I've
Yeah,
even
very
got
unique.
matching socks for them.
Oh, yeah, I see that. Nice. All right, so you're a stylish ultra cyclist. That's so cool. Okay, what are we looking at here in this photo?
This was again a long race. It was a 260-kilometer race,
Hmm.
and yeah, I was again in the lead at this point of time.
Yeah, pretty cool.
This
Who
was around the halfway point.
Yeah, who took this photo? Is it the race organizers or is it
Yes,
the SAG vehicles?
it was the race organizer. It wasn't a
Okay.
supported race. It was
Hmm.
an unsupported one.
Okay. Now, for these kinds of events out there in India, are they very well supported? I mean, what can you expect if somebody were to fly out there and compete in one of these events?
So the community is very small,
Hmm.
but they're tightly knit. We all know each other,
Hmm.
and those who are into organizing these races, they're really dedicated, and they do a really great job. Like the Ultra Spice race or the Deccan Cliffhanger, they're all managed really well.
Hmm.
And yeah,
In terms of all of the Indian ultra cyclists that you're aware of, whether ones that have done ram, ones you've trained with, it's a small close knit family. It sounds like they're within India itself, but also just across the globe, really. The beautiful thing about the ultra family. Where would you place yourself? I mean, you're a very strong rider, typical FTP over 300 watts. Where would you place yourself amongst the ranks of Indian ultra cyclists? Would you say you're one of the 10 fastest that you're aware of in India? Or give me some context.
uh, so as a matter of fact, you wouldn't find more than 10 ultra cyclists when you
Huh.
say fast.
Hmm.
But yeah, I would definitely be in the top five.
Oh, okay. And do you know all of the other four in the top five there?
Yep, I know all of them.
Oh, okay. So is there a healthy competition amongst all five of you?
Oh yes, we're all friends, and we all joke about each other,
Huh.
and yeah, we're all friends.
Okay. Now these other ultra cyclists, are they around the same age or just a varying age range?
uh, you can say we're all in the 30s.
Hmm.
Maybe a couple of them maybe in their late 30s,
Hmm.
and Kabir is in his late 20s. I'm in my early 30s. So yeah.
Very cool. So we have a strong and young group of Indian ultra cyclists who are ready to storm all of the ultra events around the world, including RAM. So it'll be exciting to follow the journey. And I'm sure all of you amongst your friends and yourself must feel a great sense of pride in being able to represent your country and also being very strong riders just in general on the global stage.
Yep. We have like a lot of people know us and a lot of people follow us, and
Yeah.
they keep asking us for tips, what to
Mm.
do, how to improve themselves. And as a matter of fact, I also train a few people who are
Mm.
also aspiring to become ultra cyclists. So yeah, the community is growing, and we all look up to each other.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was going to ask you about that in terms of yourselves furthering the cause of ultracycling in India. So you said you trained some people. What do
Yeah.
people think in your life, friends, family, people back home in India about you and your friends doing all this ultracycling? I mean, is it exciting for them as well?
So not many people actually know about it. That all they know is cycling, and they don't know that road racing is a different thing, ultra cycling is a different thing, mountain biking is a different thing, altogether different thing.
Right.
So yeah, they do get fascinated that I'm doing some crazy amount of distances,
Yeah.
and they have the appreciation for that, but that's about it.
Yeah. Well, really nice to be able to chat about that. What do you think most people, whether they're in India or just around the world, what do you think most people don't realize about ultra cycling? Whether it's a non-cyclist or just a non-ultra cyclist.
um, Ultra cycling, so as I said, it definitely has a mental aspect to it. You need to be mentally strong, but you also need to be physically strong, and that's what people miss. And I've observed one thing that uh, if you talk about the best of the ultra cyclists in the world, they all have had competitive racing backgrounds, like in the shorter format, and then they have graduated on to ultra cycling. But what I'm seeing in India is that most of the endurance riders, like people coming from breves, they are coming into ultra racing, and they don't have that competitive spirit in them, and that is something that makes the difference. That makes all the difference. If you're competitive in nature, you will do good in ultra racing. You just don't have to be an endurance rider. You can obviously build endurance, but if you're a competitive racer in a shorter format, you can also do it in a longer format if you have that amount of endurance. I would love to see more people coming from the racing scene coming into ultra racing, because that is something that I would say gives me an edge over others, because I can push hard, and I can get a lead from over others. I can attack on the climbs because I have that amount of power.
Yeah.
So that's something that gives me an edge over others, and I would love to see more people coming in.
Yeah, you're looking great here in this photo. What was this event?
This was the Ultra Spice. This was the initial few kilometers
Right.
near leaving the city.
So just on what you were talking about, being competitive and having that to help you become a great ultra cyclist. Now, of course, it's not required, but it sounds like from your
Yeah,
perspective, you very much are a competitive minded athlete yourself. And I suppose that would also translate to your coaching style as you coach others. So it sounds like a great, test bed or development bed for other racers, especially there in India, to keep bringing up the next generation who are not just going to be, crazy in terms of riding long distances, but also crazy in terms of riding long distances very fast. So I think that's also
yeah,
unique, having a coach like you to kind of foster that community there in India. And it sounds like there are many other young ultra racers that your friends that I
yeah,
guess still live in India, right?
yeah. They still live in India.
Mm. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I'm sure just even within the next 5 years, it only took you about 4 years in ultra racing to do what you've done. And so as you continue to train a handful of people each year, I'm sure there'll be a lot more for us to see as we sit back and watch, the Indian ultra cycling community kind of make a big dent in the racing world.
Absolutely. So it's a sport that takes time for you to build.
Right.
It takes time to graduate into that mindset
Hmm.
uh, of going into that, that witching feeling that you're feeling the pain,
Hmm.
you don't know what to do, and you still have to go on, and go on.
Hmm.
And so training for that takes time.
Hmm.
Definitely, when 4 years back when I started ultra racing, I didn't have that mindset that I have as of now. So it takes time to build that mindset. I'm
Right.
still growing. I still have a lot to learn.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah.
So, what are your tips, for these people that you're training back home in India, and perhaps others that you may meet in Toronto, or even others virtually that you'll come across around the world? What are your tips for people to get started with ultra cycling?
So one really important thing that I see is people lack regularity, and cycling is a sport in which it demands discipline. You need to be disciplined. You need to be regular. If you miss training or if you're not trained properly in a structured way, then you won't be able to reach uh, where you want to. So following a structured plan, being regular is really important, and obviously being competitive is really important.
Awesome.
Another
Yeah.
thing is that you should try to train smartly. I see a lot of people doing long distances on and on and on and on. So, and that's not going to take you anywhere. You need to train smartly. If you're training for a 24-hour event, you don't need to do 24 hours to train for it. You can train for it by doing a shorter version of it,
Right.
and then extrapolating the same thing over the 24-hour period. So I see a lot of people doing really long rides for training. That's really not needed. You're actually fatiguing yourself. So either consult a coach or read more on the internet. That's what I would suggest. But doing those crazy long rides for training is not, I would say, necessary.
Right. Yeah, a bit of discipline to ride more with intensity goes a long way.
Yeah.
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 And it sounds like you have that dialed in pretty nicely for yourself. So I'm glad to hear that. You've accomplished a lot. There's still a lot more on the radar for you. And so we'll be looking out for you on the ultra roads, and curious to see what else you accomplish. What's some of the kind of bigger ticket races that you're looking to target over the next couple of years?
Definitely the WTTC, the World Time Trial Championship. That's definitely on my radar. Or anything which is a 24-hour time trial. I have now realized that 24 hours is something that is kind of my spot. It's not very short. It's not really long, like a multi-day race, because in a multi-day race there are a lot of different variables that come in.
Right.
You have to sleep. Then your crew has to be really good. There are a lot of different aspects in a multi-day race. But in 24 hours, it's also long. It's not short.
Yeah.
But you don't need to sleep or stop for a long time. So 24 hours seem to be like a sweet spot for me. You don't need a lot of crew as well, because the crew just needs to stay at one point. So there's not much of logistics involved. Money wise, it's not very expensive. So 24 hours races is something that I would be targeting in the next couple of years. So any 24-hour time trial happening around North America, that's something I would love to target.
And I would imagine even virtually, I'm sure there will be many more of those offered in the coming year at least.
Absolutely, yeah. I wanted to do VRAW, but I decided against it because I wasn't trained properly at that time. I was still, during my training phases where I wasn't in my peak performance. So I didn't want to try that. Yeah.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing you in the virtual world, but also out on the actual roads, especially here in the US.
Yeah.
Mayank, very exciting to chat with you. A couple sprint round to the finish line questions for you in closing here. First one is, when is your next long training ride?
My next long training ride, I'm planning to do a half Everesting. Again, it's going to be indoors. Just like that. No, nothing in mind. Otherwise, I might do some long rides outdoors till the winter season hits. I haven't decided where, but I will definitely want to do some long rides, some 6-hour long rides outdoors.
Yeah, cool. Now, you're riding so much, especially these long distances, you're putting a lot of mileage on the bike. So how would you rate yourself in terms of bicycle maintenance on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being exceptional?
So I have worked in a bike store before.
So
I know ins and outs of a bicycle. So I do my own maintenance. I do everything on my own. So you can say 8 on 10.
That's excellent. Yeah, from our conversation, sounds like you are a very well-rounded cyclist, both in physical and mental capabilities, your level of competitiveness, your intensity, even your power profile, and uniquely bicycle maintenance, because that tends to sit on the back burner for a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, Mayank, you've had a number of bicycles over the years. What is your dream bicycle going forward, or do you already own it?
I would love to get a Canyon Speed Max, which is a TT bike.
Hmm.
So that's something that I would love to own someday.
Yeah, definitely. That'll be cool to see you on that.
Yeah.
Okay, Mayank, last question. Who would you nominate for another episode on this show? Somebody that has inspired you, maybe a role model, maybe a fellow Indian ultra cyclist who you think their story is powerful, worth sharing.
I would say Kabir, the guy for whom I crewed in RAM, and he
Hmm.
was also a fellow competitor in the 24-hour virtual time trial.
Oh, he was.
Hearing about his story would be awesome because he and we both started into ultra racing at the same time,
Hmm.
and he has achieved a lot more than me. He has won a lot of races,
Hmm.
so it would be nice to learn about him. Where does he get his motivation from,
Hmm.
and what just keeps him going? Because he's going to attempt RAM once again,
Hmm.
and yeah, so it would be nice to hear from him.
Yeah, that sounds great. And it's crazy that you say he's accomplished a lot, and it sounds like you're comparing to yourself where you haven't accomplished as much as him. But from everything that we've discussed, it sounds like even in a very short amount of time, you've accomplished a great deal, and you're a very strong rider. So that would be interesting to chat with him also to see,
Yeah,
all the
so he's
talent.
done like he's done like 10 ultra races, and he's been on the podium for all of them. So
Wow, incredible.
he's definitely a strong rider, and
Yeah.
even his power profile is similar to me.
Hmm.
So yeah, he's definitely a strong rider.
Yeah. So it sounds like not only is there a lot of talent coming out of India, giving the rest of the world a run for their money, but even just amongst yourselves, it sounds like there's some healthy competition that's going to keep you, fuel you for the years to
Yeah,
come, right?
yeah.
That's awesome. Very cool. Well, Mayank, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. We'll be following your journey and looking forward to having you back on the show for whatever else you end up signing for, especially on all
Sure.
that virtual stuff.
Yeah, my pleasure, Justin. Thanks a lot for having me, and yeah, discussing about all my races. And I would love to join you once again in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks a lot. And thanks a lot, everyone, for tuning in today. I hope you got a lot of inspiration. I know I did. And there's a lot of competition out there. So better get up now and hop on your indoor trainer and get some miles in. Maybe not 24 hours, but maybe you can start with 1 or 2 hours and hope you have some fun out there. We'd love to hear your own story and hope Mayank has given you some fuel for your own training and for your racing ambitions. Try to structure a workout in, try to hop on the trainer. And until then, let's keep spinning ultra, everyone.